The exchange sacrifice. Something that many chess players are scared of, scared to perform, scared that it will end up actually backfiring on them. Well, let's take a look at a few examples of the exchange sacrifice, and then let's go over some concepts. So, first off, we're not going to talk about just sacrificing a queen for a checkmate, or sacrificing a minor piece for gaining a ton of material all at once. No, the exchange sacrifice that we are going to be looking at is the calm exchange sacrifice for a long-term advantage, such as a positional advantage, more so like a passed pawn, protected passed pawn, even. So that's what we're going to look at. And I have a great example here, Treball versus Spielman. This game was played in 1922, and in this position, Black here could just play queen takes d5, and after queen takes g4, play rook to f5, and have a very definite advantage. However, Spielman was a attacking player. He liked to attack. So he, as Black, decided to play bishop takes bishop takes e6. Whoops, why is it white to move? Alright, so as I change that, here. Okay, so bishop takes e6. So that was the move that he decided to play. And he's obviously sacrificing this rook, if you did not notice, which was hanging. So bishop takes the rook. Alright, the rook takes back, queen to c2, and bishop to c4, attacking white's rook. So here, Spielman is trying to maximize the power of his bishop pair. So now, after queen takes e4, bishop to d5 will win the queen. So you may say, how? Well, queen takes e4, bishop to d5 wins the queen because of the checkmate that's going to be coming over here with the queen sliding into g4. So that's why, if you're asking how. Anyways, now, Black sacrificed that rook for the bishop pair over his bishop pair. So now Spielman has the bishop pair, and white is left with only one bishop. So rook to f2, getting out of that, bishop to d3. Now his bishop is protected, queen to d2, and b4. Look at these passed pawns that are just going to storm down. Obviously, having two bishops aimed at these pawns is going to be very powerful for Black. So, king to h1, just trying to get out of this possible diagonal pin situation. And then b3. Rook to g2. And queen to b7. And then f5. An interesting move. a3. f6. Still rather interesting, but what the point here is trying to get the bishop off. So the bishop is now off. Now the rook can take. And now the rook takes. And then b takes. Alright, bishop now to c2. Protected by yet another pawn. Rook to g1 coming down to defend the back rank. Queen to c8. a4. Not the best move because it allows queen to f5. And now a5. Still going for it. His last hope. Check. Rook to g2. And then after rook to g2, we see h5. Coming down to win the rook, right? King here, b2, and the game is over. Black has won. So you can see that Spielman decided to sacrifice his rook in an exchange sacrifice, a bishop for a rook, just so he could have these two bishop pairs pointing at the pawns, which would create, in the end, a potential passer, which is the b-pawn right here. So you can see how powerful this bishop especially was, and even this bishop, pretty powerful. So he sacrificed that to get the light squared bishop off the board. So now Black has a light squared bishop, but the thing is, the bishop does not have a challenger to challenge on the light squares, and that is what ended up giving him the big advantage. So another look at the exchange sacrifice to get a bishop. So here, white is obviously, if you haven't seen it already, threatening d3, and then g takes f5, opening up a file on the king side and unleashing an attack on the king. So black here plays bishop to d7. Oops, did I not? I always do this. Black to move. Alright, bishop to d7. Then g takes. So white's attack is completely frustrated now after bishop to d3 because of bishop to e8 for black. So now black plays down here, queen down to h3, bishop to e8 still, bishop to d3, and bishop to g6. What a beautiful move. So a bishop on f5 here will be worth more than a rook. So here he's going to take soon. Not yet. He tries to avoid it. So he plays here. Queen comes down. Then finally he's like, okay, I have to take. Bishop takes. Queen now to f3. And then knight to c6. Beautiful. So now this prevents white's c4. And as you can see right now, black here has opposite colored bishop than white. And the reason is that he sacrificed his rook, actually, here, is because he did not like the fact that that bishop had a counterpart. He wanted that bishop to be free. Also, look at the color squares that his pawns are on. He did not want that bishop to come in and create any type of weakness. So, he now has this bishop. So let's see how that plays out. Just a few more moves here. King to h8, a4, and queen down to f7. a5, he's going to continue to push on the pawn. A takes, c takes, rook now to g3, bringing up the rook. Knight a5, f3, knight to c4. So now the knight has an outpost. King to f2, and a5. So now the attack has shifted over to the queen side. White got rid of his weak a-pawn, but in return, black has a dominating knight on c4 and a passed a-pawn of his own. And white here has absolutely nothing to do. You're going to see he's going to move his king. White, like we said, has nothing to do. You're just going to see him do some dumb moves here. And then we have bishop to g6, just waiting. White has nothing to do. King to f2. Queen now to f5. So, with nothing to do here, all he can do is move around his king. Nothing's really going to help him. So opposite colored bishop favors the attacker. Remember that. Opposite colored bishops favors the attacker. Black ties down white's pieces and finally is able to break through on the queen side. So rook here, rook now to a7, bishop to c1, h6, king to g1. Again, he has nothing to do. a3, pushing it down. Rook to g2, trying to bring his rook back. Bishop now to h5. Rook is going to come back to g3. Queen to f8, redirecting his queen. Rook to h3. Bishop here. Rook comes back. And now the bishop is like, okay, I'm done with your games. I'm going to f5. Then we have queen to g2, trying to get something here. b5, not gonna work. Queen to f2, and then finally b4. So white has been moving around his rook, queen, and king the past couple moves, not really accomplishing anything. And now b4. This is a good practical move, and you'll see how it turns out. After queen to e1, bishop takes c2. Again, he's giving up this bishop. However, if he does, black is gonna push a2 and then push a1 right away the next move. So obviously he can't really take, so he's just gonna take here. And now the bishop comes to b1, getting a protector on the a2 square where it will be next. Alright, rook back to a1. Now the better move here would have actually been giving up the rook on a3, knight takes, bishop takes, and then actually bishop to d3 would have been powerful here. But anyways, let's just see what happened in the game. Rook takes Then a2, f4, trying to bring in his rook to help desperately. Queen, again, is going to be redirected soon. Now the queen up to e2, white still with nothing to do. So now black is just coming in, and white moves his queen back. He has absolutely nothing that he can do. The rook now moves in, bishop to d2, trying to protect his pawn. The knight takes, the queen takes, the rook takes down here, and now rook to d3, desperately trying to get something, so he has to give up his rook there. The queen takes, and then rook to b3, and this is done. So queen to d1, by the way, loses to queen to b4. Obviously, if he now takes this pawn, you pin the queen to the king, and black is up. So again, an example of the exchange sacrifice favoring the attacker with the bishop, right? He got rid of the bishop's counterpart, unleashed a big attack, and actually this was kind of a double whammy, and it's going to introduce our next topic, passed pawns. So you could see he got the passed pawns with the exchange sacrifice as well, and that passed pawn ended up killing him. So did this white bishop. This light-colored bishop, actually, for black. Now, if white had a light-squared bishop, wouldn't that stop this attack? And you can say it would, because now he'd have the light squared bishop to challenge this bishop, to challenge this pawn. Instead, he's just stuck with this bad dark squared bishop that can't do anything. It's blocked in by his own pawns. So that is an example of a long-term advantage. So now let's take a look at an example of just passed pawns, where you exchange to get a protected passed pawn. So that last example was an example of how you can use the exchange sacrifice to get rid of a bishop's counterpart. Now we're going to talk about the second concept that an exchange sacrifice would be good for, and that would be for to get a couple passed pawns. So rook to d4 here for black was the move that was played. So obviously, this is such a simple move, but shocking at the same time. If white takes the enemy rook, black's pawns are straightened out, so they're no longer doubled, and black has a protected passed pawn. So this is usually pretty good. And these two bishops are going to have something to do, and that is protect the passed pawns and help advance. So here in the game, white actually resisted for a little bit with knight to e2. And then bishop to c8. So black is getting ready to redirect his bishops, and obviously white wanted his bishop, so he takes with the knight, and black lets him. So now c takes, protected passed pawn, and bishop to f2. Now this move is a serious mistake, and you can see white needs to break on the queen side. This bishop is going to be the cause for white's epic fail, and you'll see in a little bit. c5, rook to f1, and then f5. So now black is trying to bust open the king side and the center. Bishop to g3, he's not going to let him. Bishop to d7, rook a to d1, stopping the possible advance, and then f4. And that move gets an exclamation mark because now it makes this bishop completely worthless. The dark squared white bishop has nothing to do. And now g5, now it doesn't have anywhere to go. It can't even go to h4 in the future. So g4. So this is pretty weakening, and it's trying to counter black's idea. So black just en passants it, and then the bishop. So now the bishop has a little bit of breathing room, but not too much. Bishop to h3. Obviously the bishop pair is always strong, especially when you can invade like this. h5, rook f to d2. h4. Oops, h4. So now this bishop is once again worthless. This is just so funny. Rook comes in here attacking the backward pawn. Now rook to d3. So it's obviously blocking the passed pawn and it's protecting. Rook to f4 coming in there. king to h1. He's going to get out of any possible checks. Black starts moving his king forward. Rook comes over to g1. Bishop now to d8. Then the queen comes into e2. Queen to f7, putting a little battery on that pawn. Queen to d1. Queen to h5, again on the pawn. And finally, bishop to e3. So he sees that if take, he'll get the bishop. So obviously, we're not going to do that. And bishop to e1, g4 is played. Very nice breakthrough there. So he has to stop that. And black is not going to fall for that. He's just going to take with a check. Trade off the queens, right? Rook takes. And then after that, bishop takes g5. And rook takes d3. And bishop takes d8. So you could see that it is still even after all of that exchange. However, black has that passed pawn. And again, that is going to come back to haunt him. So rook now moves over to e3, preparing the way. He's going to try to come in there to stop some stuff. He takes the pawn. Bishop takes the pawn. And then rook down to e2. Rook to d1, stopping the advance. Bishop to g4. Obviously getting ready for the discovery, which would be deadly. Here, giving up a free pawn, just so that the bishop can get out of there. b4. Bishop now back to f5 this time. d6. Oops. Bishop to d6. And then he moves d3. Bishop now, pawn takes a5, h3, and this is just too overwhelming. And obviously you can see how he gave up that rook back there. He gave up his rook to get this passed pawn, and in the end, that passed pawn is what ended up destroying black, or white. Black ended up destroying white. So you can see that that is another example for an exchange sacrifice. So one last thing that the exchange sacrifice can be used for. It can be used for getting rid of a powerful piece. So first, let's take a look here at this game. Bishop to f3 was played in this position, and white allows right away for this knight to come in. He also allows right away for e4. So here black decides to just wait on playing e4. So white walks right into it. He's also getting rid of a defender on the d3 square, which obviously this knight can come into if it wants to. And now rook to e1, look at that. It looks like white has just walked right into a fork. Boom. Knight to d3. Beautiful. Now this rook moves over to e2. The knight takes. Rook takes. Oops, I'm sorry, the queen takes. Rook e8. c5. And f rook to f8. And then knight to e4. So in this position, black ended up offering a draw. Black went from winning. This position is winning for black. He went from winning to offering a draw, and white decided to accept because there is no reason to decline a draw at this point. So here the exchange sacrifice was used to get rid of a powerful piece. This knight is extremely powerful right now. It is the one that is holding down this position, ready to break it open. However, he gets rid of it for the rook. Oops, I don't know why I did that. He gets rid of it for the rook, and now white is back in the game, and they ended up drawing. So I hope that this video has made the exchange sacrifice a little less intimidating for you, now that you've seen how it can be used to get rid of a counterpart to a bishop, it can be used to create a passed pawn, and it can be used to get rid of a powerful piece, and also, of course, unleash an attack. So I hope that helped. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more. We're going to have more lessons. We've got it all planned out. Ready to come, weekly lessons. Thank you. Enjoy your chess.